So, I'm Riccardo Zanussi, Chief Architect in wefox. wefox, I don't know if you know, is an insurtech. It's a good term, good word, but let's see a little bit what the meaning. Following Investopedia, insurtech is based on the belief that insurance industry ripe for innovation, disruption, and so digital innovation. Means that we are an insurance company, but we are not an insurance company that have 100 years of history, a big insurance company. We are an insurance company, we have 7 years of history, and we want to revolutionize the insurance. Not only by making things different, but also on the organization of IT. We are fast growing. We want to arrive to 100% of growing every year. We are agile by default, where the other insurance company want to be agile and they are not. And we have a strategy-based platform that the other company is struggling to do that, because anytime we make something new, we have to building from scratch and for the product. We have a 100% agile structure. Means that we have domain, and after we explain what is the meaning, what is division of domain inside our company, and we have different flavor, different topics through the domain. On the architect, we have something that is above the domain called architectural governance boards. After all, we see exactly what I mean. What we explain to you is because we want to make a real case in a real company that is trying to combine a platform with a growing at the same time. So we arrived to what we explain you after 7 years of tried, 7 years to looking what's happened, 7 years of finding the best way to make a revolutionary, but also making the things right. In our company, we divide in our domain, not to look to anyone. If you see the light part, the digital customer part, our front-end domain, and the back-end part are divided like everyone can know, the part of the insurance, policy, customer, product, distribution, claims, and finance, and so on. So this is a typical division. And for the last one, we have a platform of strategy, that this is really what we want to innovate the market. So parallel of our insurance, our normal job of selling product and earning money for the insurance, we are building a platform that can manage all the product for the insurance, not just for us, but also for other company, and selling this product through different channels. This is completely flexible, completely product-driven, and this is something that we think that the market is going. And this is an example of our company. We are on a startup in some way, also from 7 years. We are starting like a legacy company, and we're starting also to innovate the market with a new IT stack. So how we manage the architectural job here? It's a special things, and probably other companies have the same topic, have the same problem. To manage an architecture and company can grow fast, want to deliver anytime, want to deliver every week new functionality. Architecture is difficult, but on the other time also there is some kind of legacy system. So what is the role of the chief architect? I'm chief architect, and after in the middle presentation I give the word to my colleague, Marc, that is part of architect of one domain. We follow a little bit of the things about Gregor Hope. I think that many of you know it. And basically say that the architect is not more the people that draw diagrams or making things on just imposing things to the rest of the company. But it's something that have a different job internal the organization, different job to inspire, different job to counseling, different job to keep people together without imposing things. And the role of enterprise architect in a lean enterprise, we think that if you follow Gregor, you say, I have to share a vision about what we are going to, building bridges between the different parts of the company, find new opportunities to change, new opportunity to introduce new things in the company, and build a community of learning. We have to rise up everything, we have to understand everyone about what is the meaning. And also from McKinsey, that I know it's a big company, but sometimes they make something that could be useful, is how enterprise architects need to evolve to survive in a digital world. Means that the best skill that have to have an enterprise architect, not surprising, is interpersonal skill. You know, we have Lot of team, lot of agile team. Agile means that every team is independent to make its own choices, making its own things. But at the end, we have a strategy. We are not a startup that's starting from scratch, and just we have a direction, we are going someplace. So we have combined these two things, the independency, agile of the team, with the strategy of the company that also targets for the chief architect to drive the full development in the same strategy. So the first thing that we have to have, like chief architect, is interpersonal skills. Architects, as I like the sentence, enterprise architects have been famous for being a wall of no. You cannot do that. You cannot use this database. You cannot use the things. You cannot make it in this way. Because if doing this way is against the policy of the company, against the standard. I worked for some years in the biggest insurance company in the world. Enterprise architect just making exactly this. No, 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 and no. You have to do it this way. We don't want to make it this way. We want to combine strategy, insurance company, but also agile. Be free to do things. Okay? So we have to develop in all the team the customer-oriented. We have to develop the knowledge of the strategy. What means the strategy for all the team? And for that, we need interpersonal skill. Of course, we need professional competence. We need to know business topics and problem solving. But strange, the last two things, the enterprise architect in a lean company are technical software school and managerial skill. So that in this case, what we learn, because I don't tell you that the things we arrive to is happening in one night. We have 7 years in history, and this organization happened with stride, with error, with mistake, with understanding what's happening, and so on and so on. We arrive to this kind of organization. I am the chief architect. I'm not belonging to any domain. And for every domain that we call it the division, we have what we call it architect or principal engineer. Just to making these things. It's a translation between an architect, but also have the technical skill to understand what the developer is doing. With many presentations of thinking about splitting microservices and so on. But also, the contact with me, like chief architect, it means that strategy of the company is never forgot. Because this is our driving. This is what we want to do. So we have to manage, we are the point of connection between these two things. Just to understand about the roles, what we have it. I'm the chief architect, I'm the chapter lead. I have the architectural board lead with some veto powers. Sometimes I say some no, not everyone, not every time. And I drive the medium and long-term strategy. Of course, we have a plan, like strategy, that arrives until 2030. It's not a technological plan. Nobody knows what's happening in 2030. If I see, we are in 2022 now. If we see 7 years ago, what are the services that they are in Amazon, AWS, probably 70% of the services we use now are not there. So we cannot see we have a tech strategy completely defined for the 2030. But we have some idea about the general strategy, where we have to go. That sometimes have some kind of influence of what we are doing now. The domain architects are, for the domain architecture, internal microservices, code review, internal domain architecture, and many things that we see, that you see during these 2 days of presentation. And interaction between us is we have, and we see exactly this interaction, exactly what we are measuring and are measured about, are end-to-end technical architecture for specific business processes. Meaning that the business processes, we have it like insurance, but also in another company, are through domains. It's not just one domain that decides what to do when a claim's arrive. When a claim's arrive a claim, you have to check with policy and to make it in payment and to check with finance, to check with the customer. So the full flow of the new claim is through domains. And this is not reachable without drawing, without the feeding together process that can embrace all the domain together and after decide what is the part that every domain can do and put in together. And this is the interaction between domain architecture that give the expertise for that, and chief architect that give the expertise about the full strategy and the full processes. And the second place, of course, meaning that we have an architecture and we are a platform, and we have some standard of technical, but we do it in the more open way. We make LFC, and any developer, not only architect, can propose an LFC and be approved. And this LFC is becoming the standard of the company. But it's not the only architect that provides LFC. This is a full democratic process. So everybody can propose an LFC, everybody can look at LFC, everybody can go in on, everybody can go to the board and be approved. So we don't enter in this diagram, but there are some points I want to put in this diagram. This is, for example, policy accounting. I don't explain you for the insurance term exactly what it is, but it's a simple diagram, and is not voluntary a diagram with a standard, because this diagram has to be understood by the CTO, that is my boss, plus all the architect, all the developer, and also the product owner. So it's a mix between processes and the mix between sometimes technical things. There is Kafka in the middle, just to understand. This is synonymous for us of messaging and queuing. So this is the type of diagram that we want to implement like end-to-end processes. And it covers more domain. And all the architects of this domain, not all the architects of the interested domain, participated to this diagram, and we implement this. So a business process spans multiple domains. The interested domain have to be agreed, way to exchange information, data schema, security, GDPR, other compliance. We are the insurance company. We are heavily regulated in any country, and the problem that is any regulation can be different in any country, also in Europe. And our ambition is to go on the world, so we have to be careful about what we are doing, and the data ownership. So, as I tell, there is no standard for diagram. We try to follow a standard, but we have a lot of people coming from us, a lot of new developers. If for any one of that, we have to instruct to use some heavy standard. When I was in another insurance company, the biggest in the world, they make courses the last 1 week just to draw in diagrams. We don't have time to do this. We want to make things fast, simply available. We have a note adding to the diagram, of course. It's not just a diagram. Architecture is not boxes and arrows. Everybody knows it. There is something more. And this is not the last step at developing. This is not given directly to developers. As I said before, this diagram is divided in domain. When all the domains involved are agreed in this picture, in the big picture of the business process, this is going deep in this domain, and every domain is adding this part, is adding this part of developing this part. So this is not given directly to the programmer. Every domain takes account of this part and goes specific in this part, respecting every domain is doing. This is the first big process we have it. And the second big process is process LFC. The process of LFC in the diagram between the proposal and so on. Just making an example what would be an LFC is the auth2 wefox concept definition of example. We started with auth2, we adding some specific things for us. We adding, we publish, and all the domain are working with that. This is why. Because at the end, we want to be an open platform, have an API. And it's not possible that every domain make its own standard for security. The phase we have to keep speaking outside, there was people speaking with us, have to be the same for all the platforms. So this, we need an LFC. We do it, and we respect it. Parameter secret management. You know, the things is, everybody can do whatever you want. No, we try to make it. We are the insurance company. We have really privacy data. We need to keep the data private. We need to keep the data safe. And we are with really personal data like health data. So we have to really understand everything that have to be secret. And for example, Kafka for internal format, we have to, it's an interface between domain. We are even driven between the platform with some some concession, but basically we haven't driven it. And the format of this change of data internal of Kafka have to be established. And this is a process for the things. We have a proposal, we review it, we have a draft, we have a group. I'm a chief architect, we are around 10 architects, one for every domain, more or less. And so we have needed until 3 architects sponsor this proposal, and therefore we'll take into the AGB. In the AGB, there is the, as you see in the middle, there is the CTO, the chief of architecture, me, the vice president of the platform development, and vice president of client development. These 4 persons decide if the LHC is okay. Maybe sometimes we have new requests for new deepness of LHC because it's too light or something can be changed. And when we arrive, we say it's approved and it's official published. The thing that VP of the platform development, VP of client development are participating in this decision means that the implementation of this standard is their task. But they cannot say that it's not involved in decision because are part of the committee. So after this is decided, they are the people that implement this decision. And they tell you everything is open. The developer that entered last week can propose an LSC, and if it's good, it's taken from the company. Of course, we cannot see that everybody can see immediately it's okay. We have a process, but I tell you, the AGB is meeting every week. Okay? So this is a way you start to, we organize the architects. We organize internally. I know, as I tell you, I work for the big insurance company in the world, and we have a lot of business architect, enterprise architect, solution architect, system architect, application architect. We have just 2 parts because the other things is too complex. But we have it. We have a structure. We have something that drives the architecture of our platform, that drive the thing that developing our next future, our vision is on the track and is following our strategy. Because everything we do, we have a strategy that lasts years, but we have to follow that. So this is our environment we are doing. How we measure? Every end-to-end process lasts more or less 1 month, but between 3 and 6 meetings of 1 hour, and the last time was 2 hours, or until we arrive to the final agreement. Elapsed time around 1 month. How we measure? Quantity, we have to have 1 business process every month. It's empiric, but we see that we keep at the pace. More often was not good. And quality, how long it takes to implement, how many modifications in requirement. And for LSC, we can have at least 1 or 2 LSC for every weekly board. 1, better 2, because it means that we implement new LSC, and the quality between number of comments that understand how many people are interested, time of implementation, if we absolute value, or how many tries is this LFC is going in the board. So this is how we measure the effective of the collaboration between chief architect and architects, and how we proceed to drive the company in the right way on the architectural tech of the company. Now, thank you. My colleague Marc de Palol, that is principal engineer architect in the policy domain. That is the main domain we have it because, you know, we are insurance, so what is the best for insurance? The policy. What is the main? Is playing the work of the principal engineer and the architect in the domain.
So, hello all, I'm Marc, and I'm going to explain you, yes, exactly what Riccardo said about what's the role of a principal engineer, of an architect in a domain, how we do it, and probably the most important part, and why we are all here, how we try to measure the impact that we have in the domain, and of course in the whole company, right? So I think this is an interesting. The interesting part here is that when the company wefox some years ago was not structured in domains, so after learning from experiences, we saw that we had to change to this new organization. So we decided that we would embed an architect in every domain, right? So we had lots of philosophical conversations about what's the role, what should we do, we code, shouldn't we code, things like that, right? So at the end of the discussion, we kind of agreed that the architect would be embedded in the team, right? So you have probably seen this diagram. It's about the 4 different ways to embed to do architecture in a company. Benevolent dictator, primus inter pares. I mean, I'm not getting into details. You probably know this already. So we decided that yes, we would embed an architect in every team, right? So why that? Because we think that this allows us to empower the team. It allows the team to focus on what really matters, and also the architect can kind of cover the team from noise. So yeah, that's what we did. Another interesting point is that we recently changed the name. It's not architect anymore, but principal engineer, right? This might seem a little bit weird, but it was not just a naming change. It was also a little bit role change. It was not exactly a role change, but we decided that there were kind of 4 pillars that we need to empower. So the architects, we kind of reviewed our role and we said, okay, these 4 need to be, we need to put more effort on this, right? So first thing, it's democratizing architecture and security among the team, which is, I mean, if you've heard other speakers, and this is the trend right now. So we are very happy that we are following the trend, kind of without knowing it. But it's not a matter of having architects in towers deciding what to do. It was called architecture as a service. This is not happening anymore. So we need to make sure that all the members of the team have power, it's basically a learning experience. So the architects participate in, the architects do the main work basically, but then we need to allow all the developers to challenge those decisions, participate in those decisions, create what's called a positive feedback loop. So basically everybody learns from everybody. So you as a principal engineer, you propose something, this is challenged by a developer, and it's, yeah, everybody's happy. This works the other way around as well. Also, we can all agree probably, and hopefully, that architects code, right? So we are software developers who, for some reason, we became principal engineers. So we still code, we still want to code. So participating in the coding and the code reviews, it's a way to tighten the team, build trust, participating in pull requests. And for me, in fact, when I propose an architecture to the team, and when they give me feedback about that, and when they see that sometimes I hadn't taken something into account, something like, for me, that's exactly a pull request to architecture. That's a code review to architecture. So I think that's a very valid feedback. In fact, recently I've been involved in the policy domain, and which is a team that, for historical reasons, is using TypeScript. I've been using JVM languages all my life, and right now I'm learning TypeScript. And for the sake of having a peaceful event, I'm not going to comment on this anymore. But it's everybody learns, and that's great. Then, of course, if the team participates in the architecture, you are improving the ownership of the architecture, which is great. I mean, there's not much to comment on that. And then the AGB decisions. As Riccardo explained, we have this RFC process, which is, I insist, and I will insist again, it's a very open process. You saw the diagram. It might seem a little bit complex, but it's not. Anybody can propose an RFC, anybody can comment on an RFC, so it's a very, very open process, right? So at the end, this process finalizes, and there's the AGB that says, okay, fine, approved, so that becomes law. So that needs to be implemented. Sometimes nobody from the domain participated in that RFC, but the thing is that all the domains need to implement that. So it's the role of the principal engineer to go to the tech lead, product manager, and all the developers in the team and say, look, this has been decided. It's a positive change, or it's something that we need to do. The problem is, of course, that's work to do, right? But the role of the principal engineer is to communicate that in a positive way, right? So how we do things, what we spend our time on, basically, as principal engineer of a domain. I would say that 80% of our work is inside the domain, 40%, which is 20% of the rest of the time, and 20% of the time that does not exist already. It's interaction between domains, and then you have more stuff to do, like transversal issues, right? Of course, it's more than 100%, but you all know what caffeine can do. So inside our domain, we do basically three things. We do the architecture proposals, let's call it that way, which means that we do, of course, democratizing architecture does not mean that we don't do anything and we just let the developers do the work and just say yes, no, that's not how it works. We do the heavy lifting, basically. We start thinking about what's the architecture, what's the vision, what do we want to do, how we want to do it, and then we have these diagrams, sequence diagrams, flow diagrams, whatever. We are kind of free to use the tools that we think they are necessary. And then after that, we present it to the team, and that's when you have this, feedback loop of comments and things like that. So basically, this is to empower the team, and very important, to make sure that the conversations happen. We don't want to impose anything. It's not the architecture as a service. It's, look, this seems a good idea. Let's talk about that, and if we all agree, of course, let's do it. The thing is that here, you need to be aware that you are not falling into paralysis by analysis or something like that, because architecture discussions tend to be lengthy. Sometimes people just say yeah, whatever, and sometimes people just keep talking. So you need to know, so just stop it here until here. But skills. Then another part, the interaction between domains. Of course, every domain needs to talk to other domains. That makes lots of sense. So we are continuously trying to improve, to see how we do that, find patterns, because really what we don't want it to be is a big distributed, big mud ball, or I don't know the naming, but you get the idea. So we always constantly think how the interaction works and what to do to improve it. And then we have transversal topics that we need to think about before that even can become an RFC or whatever. GDPR, anyone? Probably you all know what's it about, adopting new technologies, things like that. So those are the transversal topics. For the interaction between domains and the transversal topics, we use the architecture chapter. It's basically a meeting, it's a forum where all the principal engineers and whoever needs to be in there just talk about that. So that's a really valid tool to explain how things are doing. So when the AGB has decided something, that needs to be implemented. And so basically, the technological vision is clear, right? So we need to do this. But of course, there are 8 domains, and each domain has its own circumstances. Every domain has different priorities, different stakeholders. It's very different if your domain has 2 stakeholders and they are mostly happy, or if you have 15 hyperventilated guys who are constantly asking for where's my stuff? So that basically means that different domains will do things in a different speed, but that's good. That's not a problem. We know that, we accept that, and that's the way it works. And of course, the teams are different. You might have very good developers, or another team might be a little bit more conservative, so we need to all take into account that speeds are going to be different. But at the end, everybody will need to implement what has been decided in the IGB, okay? So that's part of the solution. So we can never block for something. It's an insurance company. It's not something like we can say, hey, we will just stop everything for 1 week until we do this, this, and that in the background and then come back to you. No, this cannot happen. And we had a very big problem in the beginning, which is that the decisions were made, were accepted by the CTO and the Pope and whoever had to accept them. And, but the problem is that sometimes the actions were back. So nobody knew exactly what to do. So if it's something that needs to be done, but you don't know exactly what to do, and there's nobody kind of chasing you about that, you know, things tend to go down in the backlog, and that's very, very bad. So one of the things we did was when we realized that, we basically went into the RFC process and we introduced 2 things. Basically, a definition of done, right? So probably everybody understands what's that. Okay. And then the fitness functions or the metric that had to be implemented in order to say, yes, this domain has done this, and this is the fitness function. The fitness function allows us to see that, yes, definitely that has been done, and most importantly, that that decision has a positive impact, right? So this is it. This has been by far the most important, challenging part of our journey to get into the domains and to become principal engineers of the domains. So yeah, what I just told, the RFC process, it's that diagram. That diagram, it's not, we didn't create it in 1 day. We created one, it evolved. It's continuously evolving. Right now it's evolving. We just introduced this concept of every RFC process needs to introduce the metrics that will show the impact, right? So also something that we really we saw that you need to be able to communicate these kind of decisions in a very positive way. It's not like, hey, the AGB decided that we need to do things this way. No, why? Because we need to explain how things go. We need to explain that this change is positive. It might not be positive now, but in the future, we will need it, right? Very, very important point, the architectural fitness functions. We've been talking about them since forever, metrics. This is why we are here, right? So how to know if something is good or is bad, right? And basically all of this combined, these fitness functions and the metrics allow us to see this, to have this transparency and visibility about which domains have been doing the work that needs to be done, and also to see that what was decided in the AGB is impacting in a positive way. Problems, of course, fitness functions. In fact, we had some questions about them. They are hard. They're hard to measure. Like usability, how do you measure usability, right? So you need to, it's not straightforward. Everybody might have different ideas. Everybody might have different opinions. So that's what we think, that it's really, really important to have them defined in the proposal. Because otherwise, what happens? That people, just a team, they get an HB decision, they implement it, but the change is what's the impact of the change? It's nowhere to be found, right? Or what's worse, that it was also a topic of another talk, they put wrong metrics, because those metrics were, those Grafana dashboards were easy to do, they put them there, but those metrics have nothing to do, are not exactly related to what the change was meant. This is a shamefully easy example of our perfect metric or yes, monitoring, right? So we had an RFC that we are using Kafka. And Kafka has topics, and I don't know if you have experience with that, but if you don't have a naming convention, when you list the topics in Kafka, that's a nightmare. Nobody knows which topic belongs to who. You don't know what's in there. You don't know if that's obsolete or deprecated, whatever. So one of the first things we did after setting up Kafka was, OK, this is the naming convention. If you want to create a topic, perfect, do it, do whatever you need, but please follow this naming convention. That's trivial to write a fitness function, right? So you basically need a Python script that lists the topics, checks the names, and if there's something wrong, just increment the metric. That's it, right? So the other day, I got an alert. Somebody had created, topics, wrong topics in staging. So you get the alert, you go to the dashboard, you see what happened, and then you just go to chase the heretic that did this. But I mean, that's just a very easy example of something that's extremely easy to do. Unfortunately, it's not always like that. And it's not only that. So we have fitness functions that and metrics that try to measure impact, but with other things as well. And I think that's kind of important. That might be not very scientific. They might not translate into metrics, but that's another way that we measure our success. Having real standards. We understand standards as something very positive. What we need to do is, for some parts of the coding, some parts needs to be boring, like authorization. If you need authorization into your service, don't reinvent the wheel. Go there, get that, use that. It's a thin red line between architecture and engineer productivity, but that's something that we take very seriously. Some parts need to be just boring. Okay. The last point of those examples is documentation. wefox is growing a lot in terms of business, but also in terms of new joiners. So documentation, it's key. It's key because I mean, what you cannot do is every month explain the architecture to everybody. So what we are doing is we're having documentation as a first-class citizen. Architecture diagrams are usually done with coding tools. So it's Mermaid and things like that, where you basically, it's a text file which gets rendered into the diagram. You can put that into your Git. So we are using that a lot. So up-to-date documentation, that's very important. Also roadmap. We understand that everybody in the team, every developer, should have a clear vision of where we are going, right? So that's also one of the roles of the principal engineer. Just make sure that everybody understands at least a little bit where we are going. That's important. And then this is basically a very unscientific thing that at least I try to do. And it's something similar to the what the fucks per minute when you are reviewing code, but in architecture. So when in a meeting or in a discussion, somebody says, OK, well, whatever, you are the architect, it means that wrong. There's something wrong here. It means that we haven't convinced that person. The conversation didn't go well. So basically it says, OK, you have more authority than me. It's your problem. This is, of course, it's very unscientific, but it's a way to know if things are going well or not. Then another comment is, we used to hear that a lot before. RFCs are useless because nobody implemented them. But that also changed. We hear that less and less. And that's it. That's basically how we track things in wefox. And that's it. Thanks, and we'll be happy to answer questions.
Hello. Actually, we have a lot of interesting questions. So what is the ratio architects slash engineers per domain?
That's a good question, and because the domains, that depends on the domain. For example, the domain I'm in, it's 13. We are 13, so it's 10 engineers plus one architect. There are some domains which are slower because it's not because they have different needs, but they haven't grown yet. I mean, we are hiring, so there are less engineers. But usually it's around 10 people, should be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Do you have metrics on the RFC process? How many people collaborate, rejection rate, etc.?
Yes, we have it, because basic analysis is published on Confluence, so we see immediately by really empirically the name of the comment, means that the people interested or people want to change and so on and so on. We don't check the tone. Everybody can see everything, and we are a company that is developer from many places, so everyone can have different opinions. So, but we see something interesting or something maybe can hurt a little bit because it's, I'm doing something like now that somebody is don't going well, so I have to change it. But the number of comments is a really thing that be interesting. I don't say that an LSC that is no comment is not done because nobody cares. But the CEO of the comment usually is a big impression about if the LSC is going, is really impacting in the company.
Mm-hmm. The veto of the chief architect was mentioned twice, but why do you need that? In my opinion, I don't know whose opinion is that. The discussion could be based on contents, and disagree. Okay, sorry, I can't read it. Expand it. Just a second. Okay, could be based on contents, and disagree and commit is also always an option. You want me to repeat? The veto of the chief architect was mentioned twice, but why do you need that? In my opinion, the discussion could be based on contents, and disagree and commit is also always an option.
The rate of the chief architect, see? The method? The veto, yes,
the
because
veto.
the veto, yes, I understand. I never use the veto, I have to say. But if sometimes there is some kind of fashion or some kind of not understanding that all the consequences of some decision. I have one times that I almost use the veto when it's speaking about, and I don't want to open another discussion, as you say, it could be dangerous for the peaceful of the conference about polling and callback on the API. So there is a big discussion. I have my opinion. I think that I don't say what are the parts because we can discuss it after if you want. And there is a big discussion because for me the thing that I don't want it could be really dangerous. And the other three parts I would agree for the other part. So I was tempted to do it, but at the end, as the guy make the question suggest, we finish discussing and making a little lighter version of the choice that was chosen, okay? Mm-hmm. I try always to make it, but in the stream case, because I'm chief architect, at the end we are architectural things, I have the final authority to say no. I don't have the authority to say yes. This is a majority. But I have authority to say no because I know that what's happening in other company or in other contest, that this could be really a worse decision.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How do you tackle dependencies between domains?
You want it?
Yeah.
For me, it's easy because I arrive to the point to make the process. End-to-end process, as you say before, is really a big diagram. There is something happening here, this communicating here, this is doing something, and after communicate with him. But when I arrive to the point to decide more detailed things, I pay the things to domain. I think they are enough grown up to decide by yourself and finding the point of contact and deciding things, because I don't want to go too deeper. Not because I can't, but because they have the responsibility to do it. So,
but in fact, the dependencies, they are always there, but we never found a big issue, let's say. I mean, the dependencies are pretty clear, and when there is something that it's entangling too much, we just sit down peacefully and decide, okay, well, let's try to find a better way to communication. That's it. We never had this big issue of this is too entangled, we don't know how to do it. We never faced that.
Thank you. And could you expand on why the responsibility sums up more than 100% of time?
No, it's not. It was not responsibility. It was the amount of time dedicated to staff. It's just a bad joke. Sorry.
Okay. So let's see if we have more questions. Responsibilities and focus, 160%. Would you tend to compromise the most? Or how much time you work overtime?
Right, no. Okay, I'm not going to do that joke again. The focus, it's very clear for our position, the principal engineers in the domain. So our focus, it's the domain itself, definitely. The overtime, nope. We try not to do overtime. You know, there are always projects that require it, but that's definitely not the way it is usually. But I would insist, our responsibility is the domain, and we focus on the domain. Of course, there are lots of things to do as well, but there's no discussion on that.
As company, we don't push overtime, so we are IT. Sometimes happen, you know, sometimes happen always, but we don't push overtime. We have to work the way you have to work. And for the responsibility between the domain there, of course, they are the principal engineer of the domain. I take their time sometimes when we need it. Sometimes I say, now we speak 2 hours about that things because it's becoming a problem. The things because we have to define the full process. Without that, we cannot go on anyway. So I take their time, and they happily or not happily adapted to my request. But this is the way we are doing. Their responsibility of the domain, but domain means also the interaction. Also, a business process that includes their domain is their domain that are in this business process. So they have to take care and take ownership of their part and understand and accept what are their part. Okay?
Mm-hmm. How would you approach scaling when a domain would be owned by more than one team?
There is more than one team in one domain.
Owned by more than one team?
No, there is no one team that owns one domain. It could be one domain that have more than one team in their domain, but there is no one team that own more than one domain. Mm-hmm. They are really struggle. At the beginning was made a brainstorming, understanding about deciding what are the domain. And basically we are reflecting the structure until now. Maybe we add one domain or something like that, but the structure basically is stable. Because in this way, it's enough easy. Insurance business is something old, so we don't tend to invent the wheel again. The domains more or less are these ones.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how many time per week is spent in the chief architect on one-to-one meetings with the principal engineers?
I try to make a cycle that in this time there is more or less 10 engineers, and then to making in 2 or 3 weeks, making a full cycle one-to-one and start it again. Of course, there are some special events like performance review and these institutional things, but I try not to stop, never to making one-to-one. Usually a cycle one-to-one with everyone for have his own hours busy and so on, and it's just not to make it too fast, it's between 2 and 3 weeks. But when I finish, I start again. I never lost the touch with them. I don't say that I enter in the micromanaging, absolutely not, but I want to know if they have problems. They know that anytime, anyway, they can call me and say, Riccardo, I need 1 hour with you because there is a special, I have 15 years experience in insurance, so I have need to understand exactly what the problem is, and I understand another thing, so they are completely free anytime to fix me 1 hour and they speak about things. But anyway, we have one-to-one in continuous cycling.